I'd say hello, but there's nobody here yet. Oh. Oh, I got one person. Hi. Just waiting for the Artsy Nurse. Hey, Michelle. There she is. Hey, Artsy Nurse. Oh, really, Michelle? Just looking for the video that Artsy Nurse sent me because I wanted to play it. It is revolving around Susan Atkins. Yeah, I should put the link in. That might be good. There you go. Hey, Mary. Okay, found it on there. Oh, it says device not connected. Hey, Brittany. It says that you need to connect your microcam before I can add you. Oh, it's hot in here.
Hello, I'm Patsy Ramsey. Daddy's not here, but this is Jean Benet. She's 4, Burke is 7.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I had another thing running with my camera, so that's why it wasn't letting me in. I was like, oh, oops.
Oh. I was trying to find that video. It's on my playlist, so I'm going to go do that. Up the one that you sent me.
Which one?
The one about Susan Atkins, I believe. The 2-minute clip. Do you remember?
I sent you two. I think I know which one you're talking about.
I think it's from the movie, and it was at the part of Susan Atkins because we were right in the middle of talking about her in the book. I just got to get through all my corn videos. Holy, I got so many. I've saved so many. 406. Holy crap. Oh my god, I got End the Rain Warren stuff in here. Unseen exorcism tapes. I got some weird stuff in here. Cabbage soup. Ooh, I even got a Sally Jesse Raphael. Cool. Oh, my computer's slow as heck, of course. Come on.
Your internet kind of sucks. No offense.
Yeah, it does. Okay, I found it.
Mine will too, depending on where I'm standing in the house.
Okay, share my screen. Okay, I'm going to play this one. It's the scene 143. Do you remember it?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep.
All right, I'll play that and then I'll continue reading.
Vincent Bugliosi, Deputy DA. Please meet Susan.
Sadie.
Of course. Your lawyer has explained to you that the state of California is offering you a reduced sentence in exchange for your truth.
There's no damn volume. Hey, Dee. Hey, Lola.
I was hearing it.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, I can't hear. Okay, I'll play it. I just couldn't hear anything. All right.
Vincent Bugliosi, Deputy DA. Please meet Susan Atkins.
Accused murderess.
Sentence.
Sadie.
Of course. Your lawyer has explained to you that the state of California is offering you a reduced sentence in exchange for your truthful testimony.
He said I didn't have much choice. He told me you're not too happy about it either.
He'd be right about that.
How come?
Well, Sadie, according to your statements, you helped kill Gary Hinman, and you personally stabbed Sharon Tate. You wouldn't be my first candidate for a reduced sentence.
Boss is upstairs, right?
Something like that.
Bummer. So what do you want me to do?
Well, first you testified to the grand jury, then at the trial.
Heard them say you're the prosecutor with heart. Is that true?
I doubt it.
My lawyer says you're the biggest gun in the DA's office. That's why they assigned you. Says you won 20 murder trials in a row.
I came to talk about you, Sadie.
You know Charlie's looking at us right now and he can hear everything we're saying.
Charlie's in jail up in Inyo.
I liked it better when we were talking about you.
Would you kill for Charlie?
You want to kill us, don't you? You want to give us the death penalty? Just a right-wing Republican like Nixon who wants to see us all die.
Do you believe Charles Manson is Jesus Christ?
Well, he's my personal savior, that's for sure. Besides, he has to be who he says he is.
Why?
Because if he isn't, then who are we then? Nothing? No, he's the soul, no doubt about it.
Tell me what happened those nights. Tell me what went on in those houses.
I'm not sure where was this, Artsy?
Which jail?
No, was it someone was asking? Michelle was asking if it was on Netflix, like the clip I just showed.
That is that you can actually watch it on YouTube for free.
Oh, right on.
Let me double check that real quick.
Very heavy thought.
Yeah, if you look up Helter Skelter 2004, it does have subtitles. It looks like Spanish, but
Oh,
the
okay.
movie itself is in English.
All right. I'll get to reading here, and then we'll do the questions as usual. All right. Danny had seen the 2,500 and had been present the next morning when Manson criticized TJ for backing down. DiCarlo described TJ as a really nice guy. His front was trying to be one of Charlie's boys, but he didn't have it inside. TJ had gone along with Manson on everything up to this, but he told him, I don't want to have nothing to do with snuffing people. A day or two later, he fled in the wind. Question: who else got murdered up there? What about Shorty? Do you know anything about that? There was a long pause. Then, that was my ace in the hole. You're not very late. I just literally started reading. How so? I was going to save that for last. Well, might as well clear the things up now. Has Charlie got something he can smear on you that... Answer: no way at all, nothing. One thing did worry DiCarlo, however. In 1966, he had been convicted of a felony, smuggling marijuana across the Mexican border, a federal charge. He was currently appealing the sentence. He was also under indictment on 2 other charges. Along with Al Springer and several other street Satans, he had been charged with selling a stolen motorcycle engine, which was a local charge, and giving false information while purchasing a firearm, using an alias, and not disclosing that he had a prior felony conviction, which was federal. Manson was still on parole from a federal pen. So what if they send me to the same place? I don't want to feel a shank in my back and find that little son of a bitch behind me. Question: let me explain something to you, Danny, so you know where you stand. We're dealing with a guy here who we are pretty sure is responsible for about 13 murders, some of which you don't know about. The figure 13 was just a guess, but DiCarlo surprised them by saying, I'm pretty sure he did Tate. Question: okay, we've talked about the Panther, we've talked about Gary Hinman, we're going to talk about Shorty, and you think he did Tate. That's 8. Now we've got 5 more, all right? Now our opinion of Charlie is that he's got a little mental problem. Hey, Phoenix. But we're in no way going to jeopardize you or anyone else if, for no other reason, we don't want another murder. We're in business to stop murders, and in this business, there's no sense in solving 13 murders if somebody else is going to get killed. That just makes 14. Answer: I'm a nasty motorcycle rider. Question: I don't care. What are you personally? Answer: the police's general opinion of me is nothing. Question: that's not my opinion. Answer: I'm not an outstanding citizen. Question: as I told you the other day, Danny, you level with us all the way, right down the line. No bullshitting. I'm not going to bullshit you. You're not going to bullshit me. We level with each other, and I'll go out for you 100%. And I mean it, so that you don't have to go to the joint. Question from another detective: we've dealt with motorcycle riders before, and with all kinds of people. We've gone out on a limb to help them because they've helped us. We'll do our very best to make sure that nobody gets killed, whether he's a motorcycle rider or the best citizen in the world. Now tell us what you know about Shorty. Early that same evening, November 17th, 1969, 2 LAPD homicide officers, Sergeant Mossman and Brown, appeared at Sybil Brand Institute and asked to see one Ronnie Howard. The interview was brief. They heard enough, however, to realize they were onto something big. Enough, too, to decide it wasn't the best idea to leave Ronnie Howard in the same dormitory with Susan Atkins. Before leaving Sybil Brand, they arranged to have Ronnie move to an isolation unit. Then they drove back to Parker Center, anxious to tell the other detectives that they had cracked the case. Nielsen and McGann were still questioning DiCarlo about the murder of Shorty. They already knew something about it, even before talking to Springer and DiCarlo, since Sergeant Whiteley and Gunther had begun their own investigation into the possible homicide after talking to Kitty. They knew Shorty was Donald Jerome Shea, a 36-year-old male Caucasian who had worked at Spawn Ranch on and off for some 15 years as a horse wrangler. Like most of the other cowboys who drifted in and out of Spawn's movie ranch, Shorty was just awaiting the day when some producer discovered he had all the potential of a new John Wayne or Clint Eastwood. Whenever the prospect of any acting job materialized, Shorty would quit work and go in search of that ever-elusive stardom, which explained why, when in late August he disappeared from Spawn, no one thought too much about it at first. Kitty had also told LASO that Manson, Clem, Bruce, and possibly Tex had been involved in the killing, and that some of the girls in the family had helped obliterate all traces of the crime. One thing they didn't know, and now asked Danny, was, why did they do it? Answer: because Shorty was going to Old Man Spawn and snitching, and Charlie didn't like snitches. Question: just about the petty bullshit at the ranch? Answer: that's right. Shorty was telling Old Man Spawn that he should put him in charge and he would clean everybody up. He would, in short order, run off Manson and his family. Shorty, however, made a fatal mistake. He forgot that little Squeaky was not only George's eyes, she was also Charlie's ears. There were other reasons which Danny enumerated. Shorty had married a black topless dancer. Charlie had a thing about interracial marriages and blacks. Charlie had two enemies, DiCarlo said, the police and the N-word, in that order. Charlie also suspected that Shorty had helped set up the August 16 raid on Spawn. Shorty had been offed about 10 days later. The exact date of Shea's death still remains unknown. It is believed to have occurred on either the night of Monday, August 25th, or Tuesday, August 26, 1969. And there was possibility, though this was strictly conjecture in DiCarlo's part, that Shorty had overheard something about some of the other murders. Bruce Davis had told him about Shorty's murder, DiCarlo said. Several of the girls had also mentioned it, as had both Clem and Manson. Danny was unclear as to some of the details, how they had managed to catch Shorty off guard, and where, but as for the mode of death, he was more than graphic. Like they were going to do a Caesar, they went to the gun room, picked up a sword and 4 German bayonets, the latter purchased from an army surplus store for $1 each and honed to razor sharpness. Then, getting Shorty off by himself, they stuck him like carving up a Christmas turkey. Bruce said they cut him up into 9 pieces. They cut his head off. Then they cut his arms off too. So there was no way they could possibly identify him. They were laughing about that. After killing him, they covered the body with leaves, DiCarlo guessed, but was not sure, that this had occurred in one of the canyons behind the ranch buildings. Some of the girls had helped dispose of Shorty's bloody clothing, his automobile, and other possessions. Then Clem came back the next day or that night and buried him good. Question: can we break this up for about 15 minutes? Maybe send Danny up to get some coffee. There's been an accident and they want to talk to you guys. Sure. I'm going to send Danny up to the 8th floor. I want him back down here in 15 minutes. Answer: I'll wait right here. Danny was not anxious to be seen wandering the halls of LAPD. Question: it won't take more than 15 minutes. We'll close the door so nobody will know you're in here. There had been no accident. Mossman and Brown had returned from Sybil Brand. As they related what they had heard, the 15 minutes stretched to nearly 45. Although the Atkins-Howard conversations left many unanswered questions, the detectives were now convinced that the Tate and LaBianca cases had been solved. As will become all too apparent, in this instance, solved was a misstatement if ever there was one. Susan Atkins had told Ronnie Howard details. The unpublished words written at the LaBianca's residence, the lost knife at Tate, which only one of the killers could know. Lieutenants Helder, with Tate's side, and LePage, with LaBianca's side, were notified. When the detectives returned to the interrogation room, they were in a lighthearted mood. Question: now, when we left Shorty, he was in 9 pieces and his head and arms were off. DiCarlo was not told what they had learned, but he must have sensed a change in the questioning. The matter of Shorty was quickly wrapped up. Tate was now the topic. Exactly why did Danny think Manson was involved? Well, there were 2 incidents. Or maybe it was the same incident. Danny was not sure. Anyway, they went out on one caper and they came back with $75. Tex was in on that, and he fucked up his foot, fucking somebody out of it. I don't know whether he put his lights out or not, but he got $75. There were no calendars at Spawn Ranch. DeCarlo had told them earlier. No one paid much attention to what day it was. The one date everyone at the ranch remembered, however, was August 16th, the day of the raid. It was before this. Hey, Mare. No, don't be sorry, honey. No. You get on here when you can. Question, how much before? Answer, 2 weeks. If DeCarlo's estimate was correct, this would also be before Tate. What was the other incident? Answer, they went out one night. Everybody went but Bruce. Question, who went? Answer, Charlie, Tex, and Clem. Them three. Okay, the next morning, one of the detectives interrupted. Had he actually seen them leave? No, only the next morning. Another interpretation. Did any of the girls go that night? No. I am positive it was just them three that went. Question. Well, do you remember were the rest of the girls there that night? Answer. See, the girls were scattered all over the place, and there is no possible way that I could have kept track of who was there and who wasn't there. So it was possible the girls could have gone without DeCarlo's knowing about it. Now, what about the date? This one Danny remembered, more or less because he was rebuilding the engine on his bike and had to go into town to get a bearing. It was around the 9th, 10th, or 11th of August, and they split that night and they came back the next morning. Clem was standing in front of the kitchen, DeCarlo said. Danny walked up to him and asked, What'd you do last night? Clem, according to Danny, smiled. That real stupid smile of his. Danny glanced back over his shoulder and saw that Charlie was standing behind him. He got the impression that Clem had been about to answer, but that Charlie had signaled him to be quiet. Clem said something like, Don't worry about it. We did all right. At this point, Charlie walked off. Before starting after him, Clem put his hand on Danny's arm and said, We got 5 piggies. There was a great big grin on his face. Clem told DeCarlo, We got 5 piggies, Manson told Springer. We knocked off 5 of them just the other night. Atkins confessed to Howard that she stabbed Sharon Tate and Wojciech. Busalele confessed to DeCarlo that he had stabbed Hinman. Atkins told Howard that she had done the stabbing. Suddenly, the detectives had a serviette of confessors, so many that they were thoroughly confused as to who was involved in which homicides. Skipping Hinman, which, after all, was the sheriff's case and concerning on Tate, they had 2 versions. One, DeCarlo felt that Charlie, Clem, and Tate... Hey, Earthling! DeCarlo felt that Charlie, Clem, and Tex, without the help of any of the girls, had killed Sharon Tate and the others. Ronnie Howard understood Susan Atkins to say that 2 other girls, the names Linda and Katie, had been mentioned, but whether they were involved in this particular homicide was unclear. Plus Charles was plus possibly one other man had gone to 10050 Cielo Drive. As for the La Bianca murders, all they knew was that there was 2 girls and Charlie, that Linda was in on the one, and that Susan Atkins was somehow involved in the collective we. The detectives decided to try another approach, through the other girls at the ranch, But first they wanted to wrap up a few loose ends. What clothing had the 3 men been wearing? Dark clothing, DeCarlo replied. Charlie had on a black sweater, Levi's, moccasins. Tex was dressed similarly, he thought. Though he may have been wearing boots, he wasn't sure. Clem wore Levi's and moccasins too, plus an olive drab field jacket. Had he noticed any blood on their clothes when he saw them the next morning? No, but then he hadn't been looking for any. Did he have any idea which vehicle they took? Sure, Johnny Swartz, 59 Ford. It was the only car working at the time. Any idea where it was now? It had been hauled off during the August 16th raid and, so far as Danny knew, was probably still in the impound garage at Canoga Park. Swartz was one of the ranch hands at Spawn, not a family member, but he let them borrow his car. Any idea what Tex's true name was? Charles was his first name, Danny said. He'd seen the last name once on a pink slip, but couldn't recall it. Was it Charles Montgomery? The detectives asked, using a name Kitty had supplies. No, that didn't sound familiar. What about Clem? Does this name Tufts ring any bell? No, he'd never heard Clem called that, but that boy that was found shot up in Topanga Canyon, the 16-year-old kid, wasn't his name Tufts? One of the detectives replied, I don't know. That's the sheriff's case. We've got so many murders now. Okay, now about the girls. How well did you know the broads out there? Answer, pretty well, man, as he's laughing. The detectives began going through the names the girls had used when arrested in Spawn and Barker raids. They immediately encountered problems. Not only had they used aliases when booked, they also used them at the ranch. Not a single alias, but several, seemingly changing names like clothes, whenever the mood hit them. As further complication, they even traded aliases. As if these weren't problems enough, Danny provided another. He was extremely reluctant to admit that any of the girls might be capable of murder. The guys were something else. Bobby, Tex, Bruce, Clem, any would kill, DeCarlo felt, if Charlie told him to do so. All, it later turned out, had. Ella Jo Bailey was eliminated. She left Spawn Ranch before the murders. Mary Bruner and Sandra Good were out also. They'd been in jail both nights. What about Ruth Ann Smack, aka Ruth Ann Hewleburst? These were booking names. Her true name was Ruth Ann Morehouse, and she was known in the family as, I can't pronounce that, Osage? Danny knew this, but for personal reasons, didn't bother to enlighten the detectives. Question. What do you know about her? Answer. She used to be one of my favorite sweeties. Question. Do you think she would have the guts to get into cold-blooded murder? Danny hesitated a long time before answering. You know, that little girl there is so sweet. What really made me sick to my stomach is when she came up one night. When I was up there in the desert, she said, I can hardly wait to get my first pig. Little 17-year-old. I looked on her like she was my daughter, just the sweetest little thing you would ever want to meet in your life. She was so beautiful and so sweet, and Charlie fucked her thinking around so much it turned her guts. The date when she told DeCarlos this was determined to be about September 1st. If she hadn't killed by then, she could have been in on LaBianca or Tate, eliminate Ruth Ann. Ever know a Katie? Yeah, but he didn't know what her real name was. I never knew anyone by their real name, DeCarlo said. Katie was an older broad, not a runaway. She was from down around Venice. His description of her was vague, except that she had so much hair on her body that none of the guys wanted to make it with her. What about Linda? She was a short broad, Danny said, but she didn't stay long, maybe only a month or so, and she didn't know much about her. She left by the time they raided the Spawn Ranch. When Sadie went out on creepy-crawly missions, did she carry any weapons? One of the detectives asked. She carried a little knife. They had a bunch of little hunting knives. Buck hunting knives. Buck knives, right. They now began firing specific questions at DeCarlo. Ever see any credit cards with an Italian name on them? Anybody ever talk about somebody who owned a boat? Ever hear anyone use the name LaBianca? Donnie gave no answers to all. What about glasses? Anybody at Spawn wear them? None of them wore glasses because Charlie wouldn't let them wear glasses. Mary Bruner had several pairs. Charlie had broke them. DeCarlo was shown some two-strand nylon rope. Ever see any rope like this up at Spawn? No, but he had seen some 3-strand. Charlie had bought about 200 feet of it at the Jack Frost surplus store in Santa Monica in June or July. Was he sure about that? Sure, he was sure. He'd been along when Charlie bought it. Later he'd coiled it so it would develop snags. It was the same as they used in the Coast Guard on PT boats. He'd handled it hundreds of times. Although DeCarlo was unaware of it, the Tate Sebring rope was also 3-strand. Probably why the detectives began to learn on DeCarlo adopting a tougher tone. Question. Did you ever caper with any of the guys? Answer. Fuck no. No way at all. Ask any of the girls. Question. Did you have anything to do with Shorty's death? DeCarlo denied it vehemently. Shorty had been his friend. Besides, I've got no balls for putting anybody's lights out, but there was just enough hesitation in his reply to indicate he was hiding something. Pressed, DeCarlo told them about Shorty's guns. Shorty had a matched pair of Colt 45s he was always hawking, then reclaiming the pistols. In late August or early September, after Shorty had disappeared, but supposedly before DeCarlo knew what had happened to him, Bruce Davis had given him Shorty's pawn tickets on the guns in repayment for some money he owed DeCarlo. Danny had reclaimed the pistols, later learned that Shorty had been killed. He'd sold the guns to a Culver City shop for $75. Question. That puts you in a pretty shitty spot. You're aware of that. Danny was, and he got in even deeper when one of the detectives asked him if he knew anything about lime. When arrested, Mary Bruner was carrying a shopping list made up by Manson. Lime was one of the items listed. Any idea why Charlie would want some lime? Danny recalled that Charlie had once asked him what to use to decompose a body. They found Shorty's body in 1977. It was behind the ranch. Hey, the boss. Yeah, you don't like the book? Well, thank you for saying hi. And thank you. Danny recalled that Charlie had once asked him what to use to decompose a body. He had told him lime worked best because he had once used it to get rid of a cat that had died under a house. Question. Why did you tell him that? Answer, no particular reason. He was just asking me. What did he ask you? Oh, the best way to, get rid of a body real quick. Question, did you ever think to say, now what in the fuck makes you ask a question like that, Charlie? No, because he was nuts. When did that conversation take place? Right around the time Shorty disappeared. It looked bad, and the detectives left it at that. Although privately they were inclined to accept DeCarlo's tale, suspecting, however, that although he probably had not taken part in the murder, he still knew more than he was telling. It gave them some additional leverage to try and get what they wanted. Anybody left up at the spawn ranch that knows you? Not that I know of. I don't know who's up there, and I don't want to go up there to find out. I don't want nothing to do with the place. Question. I want to look around there, but I need a guide. Danny didn't volunteer. That made the other request straight out. Sorry. They made the other request straight out. Question. Would you be willing to testify? Answer. No, sir. There were 2 charges pending against him, they reminded him, on the stolen motorcycle engine. Maybe we can get it busted down to a lesser charge. Maybe we can go so far as to get it knocked off. As far as the federal thing is concerned, I don't know how much weight we can push on that. But here, again, we can try. Answer, if you try for me, that's fine. That's all I can ask for you. If it came down to being a witness or going to jail, DeCarlo hesitated. Then when he gets out of jail? Question. He isn't going to get out of jail on no first-degree murder beef when you've got over 5 victims involved. If Manson was the guy that was in on the Tate murder, we don't know that for a fact yet. We've got a great deal of information that way. You think one of the guys gave up the location to get reduced time prison? Yeah, who knows? Probably. Answer. If you try for me, that's fine. That's all I can ask of you. We don't know that as fact yet. We've got a great deal of information that way. Answer. There's also reward involvement in that. Question. Yes, there is quite a bit of reward. 25 grand. Not to say that one guy is going to get it, but even split, that's a hell of a piece of cash. I could send my boy through military school with that. Now, what do you think? Would you be willing to testify against this group of people? Answer. He's going to be sitting there looking at me. Manson is, isn't he? Question. If you go to trial and testify, he is. And how scared of Manson are you? Answer. I'm scared shitless. I'm petrified of him. He wouldn't hesitate for a second. If it takes him 10 years, he'd find that little boy of mine and carve him into pieces. Question. You give that motherfucker more credit than he deserves. If you think Manson is some kind of a god that is going to break out of jail and come back and murder everybody that testified against him, but it was obvious that Carlo didn't put that past Manson. Even if he remained in jail, there were others. Answer. What about Clem? Have you got him locked up? Yeah, Clem is sitting in the cooler up in Independence with Charlie. What about Tex and Bruce? They're both out. Bruce Davis, the last I heard sometime earlier this month, was in Venice. Bruce is down in Venice, huh? I'll have to watch myself. One of my club brothers said he spotted a couple of girls down in the Venice, too. The detectives didn't tell DeCarlo that when Davis was last seen on November 5th, it was in connection with another death, the suicide of Zero. By this time, LAPD had learned that Zero, a.k.a. Christopher Jesus, John Philip Hott, had been arrested in the Barker raid. Earlier in going through some photographs, DeCarlo had identified Scotty and Zero as 2 young boys from Ohio who had been with the family for a short time but didn't fit in. One of the detectives had remarked, Zero's no longer with us. What do you mean he's no longer with us? He's among the dead. Oh, shit. Is he? Yeah, he got a little too high one day and he was playing Russian roulette. He parked a bullet in his head. Well, the detectives had apparently bought the story of Zero's death, as related by Bruce Davis and others. Danny didn't, not for a minute. No, Danny didn't want to testify. The detectives left it at that. There was still time for him to change his mind, and, after all, they now had Ronnie Howard. They let Danny go after making arrangements for him to call in the next day. One of the detectives commented after Danny had left, but while the tape was on still, I kind of feel like we've done a day's work. The DeCarlo interview had lasted over 7 hours. It was now past midnight on Tuesday, November 18th, 1969. I was already asleep, unaware then in a few hours, as a result of a meeting between the DA and his staff that morning, I would be handed the job of prosecuting the Tate LaBianca killers. Part 3, the investigation phase 2. And it quotes at the bottom, no sense makes sense. Charles Manson. November 18th, 1969. By now, the reader knows a great deal more about the Tate LaBianca murders than I did on the day I was assigned that case. In fact, since large portions of the foregoing story have not been made public before this, the reader is an insider in a sense highly unusual in a murder case. And, in a way, I'm a newcomer, an intruder. The sudden switch from an unseen background narrator to a very personal account is bound to be a surprise. The best way to soften it, I suspect, would be to introduce myself. Then when we've got that out of the way, we'll resume the narrative together. This digression, though unfortunately necessary, will be as brief as possible. A conventional biographical sketch before the Manson trial would probably have read more or less as follows. And I never pronounce his, I'm just going to say Vincent because I suck at pronouncing his name. As follows. Vincent, age 35, Deputy District Attorney, Los Angeles, California. Born Hibbing, Minnesota. Graduate Hollywood High School. Attended the University of Miami on a tennis scholarship, BA and BBA degrees. Deciding on the practice of law. Attended UCLA, LLB degree, President graduating class of 1964. Joined the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office same year. He has tried a number of highly publicized murder cases, Floyd Milton, Cromwell, etc., obtaining convictions in all. He had tried 104 felony jury trials, losing only one. In addition to his duties as deputy DA, you got to tell me how to say this. I always screw it up. Artsy Nurse.
Which name?
Is it Veloci?
Bugliosi.
Okay, I'm writing that down, so I'll screw it up like I did CL. So, say it again.
Bugliosi.
All right. Bool. E-O. Let's see. There we go. Hey, Dom. I gotta find my spot. So, Vincent T. Bugliosi, and I just read that part. All right. He joined the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office same year. He's tried a number of highly publicized murder cases, Floyd Milton and Cromwell. I already read that. All right. In addition to his duties as deputy DA, anyways, Bugliosi. I'm so gonna screw that up. It's a
okay.
professor of criminal law at Beverly School of Law, Los Angeles. Served as a technical consultant and edited the scripts of 2 pilot films for Jack Webb's TV series, The DA. Series star Robert Conrad patented his part after the young prosecutor married 2 children. That's probably about how it would read, yet it tells nothing about how I feel towards my profession, which is even more important. The primary duty of a lawyer engaged in public prosecution is not to convict, but to see that justice is done. Those words are from an old canon of ethics of the American Bar Association. I thought of them often during the 5 years I've been a deputy DA. In a very real sense, they have become my personal credo. If in a given case a conviction is justice, so be it. But if it's not, I want no part of it. For far too many years, the stereotype image of a prosecutor has been either that of right-wing, law and order type, intent on winning convictions at any cost, or a stumbling, bumbling Hamilton burger, forever trying innocent people who fortunately are saved at the last possible minute by the foxy maneuverings of a Perry Mason. I've never felt the defense attorney as a monopoly on concern for innocence, fairness, and justice. After joining the DA's office, I tried hundreds of cases. In a great many, I sought and obtained convictions because I believed the evidence warranted them. In a great many others in which I felt the evidence was insufficient, I stood up in court and asked for dismissal of the charges or requested a reduction in either the charges or the sentence. The latter cases rarely make headlines. Only frequently does the public learn of them. Thus, the stereotype remains. Far more important, however, is the realization that fairness and justice have prevailed. Just as I never felt the slightest compunction to conform to the stereotype, so did I rebel against another. Traditionally, the role of the prosecutor has been twofold: to handle the legal aspects of the case and to present it to court the evidence gathered by law enforcement agencies. I never accepted these limitations. In past cases, I always joined on the investigation, going out and interviewing witnesses myself, tracking down and developing new leads, often finding the evidence otherwise overlooked. In some cases, this led to the release of a suspect. In others, to a conviction that otherwise might not have been obtained. For a lawyer to do less than his utmost is, I strongly feel, a betrayal of his client. Though in criminal trials, one tends to focus on the defense attorney and his client, the accused, the prosecutor who is also a lawyer, and he too has a client, the people. And the people are equally entitled to their day in court, to a fair and impartial trial, and to injustice. You're looking up dog things. The Tate LaBianca case was the farthest thing from my mind on the afternoon of November 18th, 1969. I just completed a long trial, and was on my way back to my office in the Hall of Justice when Aaron Stovitz, head of the trial division of the district attorney's office and one of the top trial lawyers in an office of 450 deputy district attorneys, grabbed me by the arm and, without a word of explanation, hurried me down the hall into the office of J. Miller Levy, director of Central Operations. Levy was talking to two LAPD lieutenants I'd worked with on a previous case, Bob Helder and Paul LePage. Listening for a minute, I heard the word Tate. Turning to Aaron, I asked, "Are we going to handle it?" He nodded affirmatively. My only comment was a low whistle. Helder and LePage gave a sketchy resume of what Ronnie Howard had said. As a follow-up to Mossman and Brown's visit the previous night, two other officers had gone to Sybil Brand that morning and talked to Ronnie for a couple of hours. They had obtained considerably more detail, but there were still huge gaps in the story. To say that the Tate and LaBianca cases had been solved at this point would be a gross overestimate. Obviously, in any murder case, finding the killer, it is extremely important, but it's only a first step. Neither the finding, the arresting, nor the indicting of a defendant has evidentiary value, and none are proof of guilt. Once the killer is identified, there remains the difficult and sometimes insurmountable problem of connecting him with the crime by strong, admissible evidence and proving his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, be it before a judge or a jury. And as yet, we hadn't even made the first step, much less second. In talking to Ronnie Howard, Susan Atkins had implicated herself and Charles, presumably meaning Charles Manson. But Susan had also said that others were involved, and we lacked their actual identities. This was on Tate. On LaBianca, there were virtually no information. One of the first things I wanted to do after reviewing the Howard and DiCarlo statements was to go to Spawn Ranch. Arrangements were made for me to go out the next morning with several of the detectives. I asked Aaron if he wanted to come along, but he couldn't make it. Although Aaron was my superior in my office, we had been assigned the case as co-prosecutors, each of us having an equal say in its handling. Though major, nationally prominent criminal cases of even less magnitude and complexity than the Tate LaBianca murders frequently have 3 and sometimes 4 prosecutors working on the case full time. For some reason, only Aaron and I were assigned to the case. Though neither Aaron nor I could have foreseen the months later he would be yanked off the case, leaving me to go it alone. I did realize from the start that, owing to his other duties as head of the trials division, at least his pre-trial participation would be limited. When I returned home late that afternoon and told my wife, Gail, that Aaron and I had been assigned to the case, she shared my excitement, but with reservations. She'd been hoping that we could take a vacation. It had been months since I'd taken a full day off. Even when I was at home in the evenings, I was either reading transcripts, researching law, or preparing arguments. Although every day I made sure I spent some time with our 2 children, Vince Jr. 3, Wendy 5, when I was on a big case, I totally immersed myself in it. I promised Gail I'd try to take a few days off, but I honestly had to admit that it might be a while before I could do so. At that time, we were, fortunately, unaware that I would be living with the Tate LaBianca cases for almost 2 years, averaging 100 hours per week, rarely if ever getting to bed before 2 a.m., 7 days per week. And that the few moments Gail, the kids, and I had together would be devoid of privacy, our home transformed into a fortress, a bodyguard not only living with us, but accompanying me everywhere I went, following a threat by Charles Manson that he would kill Bugliosi. I think I got it.
You did. Good job.
Bugliosi. Still kind of sounds weird to me that I'm saying it wrong. But, okay. November 19th, 1969. We picked a hell of a day for search. The wind was incredible. By the time we reached Chatsworth, it was almost buffeting us off the road. It wasn't a long drive, well under an hour. From the Hall of Justice in downtown Los Angeles, it was about 30 miles to Chatsworth, going north on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, past Devonshire for about 2 miles. We made a sharp left into Santa Susana Pass Road. Once heavily traveled, but in recent years bypassed for a faster freeway, the two-lane road winds upward a mile or two. Then suddenly around a bend and to the left, there it was, Spawn's movie ranch. Its ramshackle main street was less than 20 yards from the highway in plain view. Wrecked automobile and truck bodies littered the area. There wasn't a sign of life. There was an unreality to the place, attenuated by the roaring wind and the appearance of total desertion, but even more so by the knowledge, if the Atkins-Howard story was true, of what had begun and ended here. A run-down movie set, off in the middle of nowhere, from which dark-clad assassins would venture out at night, to terrorize and kill, then return before dawn to vanish into the surroundings. It might have been the plot of a horror film, except that Sharon Tate and at least 8 other real human beings were now dead. We pulled off into the dirt road, stopping in front of the Long Branch Saloon. In addition to myself, there was Lieutenant Helder and Sergeant Calkins of the Tate team, Sergeant Lee of SID, Sergeants Gunther Whitley and William Gleason from LASO, and our guide, Danny DiCarlo. Danny had finally agreed to accompany us, but only on one condition, that we handcuffed him. That way, if any members of the family were still around, they wouldn't think he was voluntarily flapping to the fuzz. Though the sheriff's deputies had been to the ranch before, we needed DiCarlo for a specific purpose, to point out the areas where Manson and the family targeted practice. The object of our search, any 22 caliber bullets and or shell casings. But first I want to obtain George Spawn's permission to search the ranch. Gunther pointed out his shack, which was to the right and apart from the western set. We knocked, and a voice, that of a young girl, said, "Come on right in." It was as if every fly in the area had taken shelter there during the storm. 81-year-old George Spawn was sitting in a decaying armchair, wearing a Stetson and dark glasses. In his lap was a Chihuahua, at his feet a Cocker Spaniel. A hippie girl of about 18 was fixing his lunch, while a transistor radio tuned to a cowboy station blared "Young Love" by Sonny James. It seemed as staged as the setting itself, according to DiCarlo. Manson called his girls "young loves." Hey, Sheba. Because of Spawn's near blindness, Calkins handed him his badge to feel. Once he had identified ourselves, Spawn seemed relaxed. Asked for permission to search, he replied, "It's my ranch, and you're welcome to search it any time you want to, day or night, and as often as you like." I explained his legal rights. Under the law, no search warrant was required, only his permission. If he did give permission, however, it might be necessary at some later date for him to testify to this in court. Spawn still agreed. There was no mention of Manson and his family, but Spawn must have known that they were in some way the reason for being out there. Although on occasions I would interview George at length, our conversation at this time was brief and confined to the search. Once we went back outside, people began appearing from almost every building. There must have been 10 to 15, most of them young, most in hippie-type clothes, although a few appeared to be ranch hands. How many, if any, were actual members of the family, we didn't know. While looking around, I heard some odd sounds coming from a doghouse. Leaning down and looking in, I saw 2 dogs, and crouched in their corner, a toothless, white-haired old woman of about 80. I later checked with one of the ranch hands to see if she needed help, but he said she was happy where she was. It's a very strange place. But 100 yards behind the main cluster of buildings, there was a drop down to a creek. Then beyond it, the hills rose up and became a part of the Santa Susana mountain range. Rocky brush covered, the area looked far more rugged than it actually was. I wondered how many times as a boy I'd seen this scene in B-grade cowboy films. According to DiCarlo, it was here, in the canyons and gullies behind the ranch, and across the road in Devil's Canyon, that the family hid out from the police. Here, too, somewhere in this area, if the various accounts were correct, were the remains of Donald Shorty Shea. Charlie's favorite firing spot. What, sorry?
It's really easy to pronounce. It's just Shay. Like Shay.
It's not Shea, it's Shay.
Yeah, Shay.
Okay, thank you. All right, so his name is Donald Shorty Shay. Charlie's favorite firing spot, DiCarlo said, was in the creek bed, well out of sight from the road. As targets, he used fence posts and a trash can. Under the direction of Sergeant Lee, we began searching. Though no shell casings have been found at 10050 Taylor Drive, the bunt line being a revolver, which doesn't automatically eject its shell casings, we wanted to collect both in case the gun or additional evidence was found. While we were searching the creek bed, I kept thinking about George Spawn, alone and almost defenseless in his blindness. I asked, "Anybody bring a tape recorder?" Calkins had it. Kelkins had. It was in the back of the car. Let's go back and get Spawn's consent on tape, I said. Between now and the time we go to trial, I don't want some son of a bitch putting a knife to Spawn's throat, forcing him to say he didn't give us permission. We went back and taped Spawn's consent. It was for his protection as well as our own. Knowing the tape existed could be discouragement. DiCarlo indicated another area, about a quarter of a mile up one of the canyons, where Charlie and the men sometimes target practice. We found a number of bullets and shell casings there. Because of the wind and the dust, the search was less thorough than I'd hoped for. However, Sergeant Lee promised to return at a later date and see what he could find. Although that day we found approximately 68 .22 caliber bullets, approximate because some were fragments rather than whole slugs, and 22 shell casings of the same caliber, Lee put them in envelopes noting where and when found and took them back to the police lab with him. While looking around the coral area, I spotted some white nylon rope, but it was 2 strand, not 3. Gunther and Whiteley had made their own find in Danny DiCarlo. That afternoon, they interviewed him on the Hinman murder and Bugliosi's confession. No, that's not Bugliosi. I can't pronounce that one either. I did earlier. Now I'm all screwed up. Busalele, I think it's called. The only problem with that...
Beausoleil.
Beausoleil?
Beausoleil.
Beausoleil. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
There. Beausoleil confession. The only problem was that the Beausoleil trial had been going on for a week now, and both the prosecution and defense had rested. Against the objections of Beausoleil's attorney, a continuance was obtained until the following Monday, at which time the prosecution hoped to reopen its case to introduce its confession. It was agreed that if DiCarlo testified in the Beausoleil trial, LASO would drop the motorcycle engine theft charge against him. On my return to the Hall of Justice, where a meeting in the office of the then Assistant District Attorney Joseph Bush, present in addition to Bush, Stovitz, and myself from the DA's office were Lieutenant Paul LePage, LaBianca, and Sergeant Mike Graham from the Tate side, representing LAPD. The police wanted to wrap up the case. Lieutenant LePage informed us. The public pressure on LAPD to solve these murders was unbelievable. Every time Chief Edward M. Davis encouraged a reporter, he was asked what, if anything, is happening on Tate. LAPD wanted to offer Susan Atkins immunity in exchange for telling what she knew about the murders. I was in total disagreement. If what she told Ronnie Howard is true, Atkins personally stabbed to death Sharon Tate, Gary Hinman, and who knows how many others. We don't give that gal anything. Chief Davis wanted to rush the case to the grand jury, LePage said. But before that, he wanted to break the news that we had caught the killers at a big press conference. We don't even have a case to take that to grand jury, I told LePage. We're not even sure who the killers are, or if they're free or in custody. All we have is a good lead, but we're getting there. Let's see if, on our own, we can get enough evidence to nail all of them. If we can't, then at a last resort, a very, very, very last resort, we can turn to Atkins. I could sympathize with LAPD. The media were blasting the department almost daily. On the other hand, it would be nothing compared to the public response if we let Susan Atkins walk off scot-free. I couldn't forget Susan describing how it felt to taste Sharon Tate's blood. Wow, what a trip. LePage was firm. LAPD wanted to make a deal. I confirmed with Bush and Stovitz. They were far less adamant than I. Against my very strong objections, Bush told LePage that the DA's office would be willing to settle for a second-degree murder plea for Atkins. Susan Atkins would be offered a deal. The precise terms or whether she would even accept them remained unknown. At 8 that night, the citizens of Los Angeles, still thinking that the Tate LaBianca killers were completely unknown, 2 cars sped out of Los Angeles. Their destination, the last home of the Manson family, Death Valley. It seemed more than ironic that, following the murders, Manson had chosen as his refuge a place so aptly named. Sergeants Nielsen and Granado were in one car. Sergeants McGann and Jean and I were in the other. We broke a few speed limits along the way, arriving in Independence, California at 1:30 a.m. Independence, seat of Inyo County, is not a large town. The county itself, though second largest in the state, has less than 16,000 residents, just over 1 per square mile. If one were looking for a hideaway, he could find a few better. We checked into the, I don't know how to say that one, Windema Hotel? Is that how you say it? I don't even know. We checked into the hotel for what amounted to little more than a long nap. When I got up at 5:30, the temperature had dropped below zero. I slipped my clothes on over my pajamas and was still cold. Before leaving Los Angeles, I telephoned Frank Fowles, county DA, and we had arranged to meet at a nearby cafe at 6 a.m. Fowles, his deputy Buck Gibbons, and their investigator Jack Gardner were already there. The three men were, I would soon learn, very conscious, and the help they would give us in the months ahead would be considerable. At the moment, they were also very excited. Unexpectedly, they were in the middle of one of the most publicized murder cases in modern history, or the Tate case. Then, with puzzled looks, they'd glance across the table at the big city prosecutor, pajamas sticking out of his cuffs. Fowles told me that although they had seized some of Manson's belongings during the October raid on Barker Ranch, a number of things remained there, including an old school bus, which was littered with clothing and other items. I suggested that before leaving Independence, we obtain a search warrant for the ranch that specifically mentioned the bus. This caught Fowles by surprise. I explained that if I did find evidence and wished to use it in the trial, we didn't want it suppressed just because someone suddenly appeared with a pink slip saying, "I'm the real owner of the bus. I only loaned it to Charlie and you didn't get my permission." Fowles understood that. It was only, he explained cryptically, that they didn't do things quite that way in Inyo County. We returned to his office and, after waiting for the typist to come to work, I dictated the warrant. It was necessary to state exactly what we were looking for. Among the items I enumerated were a .22 caliber revolver, knives and other weapons, rope, wire cutters, wallet, driver's license, and credit cards belonging to Rosemary LaBianca, motor plates to any vehicle, any male and or female clothing, including footwear. It was also necessary that I cite the crime 187 PC. Murder and the suspected perpetrators, tentatively believed to be Charles Manson, Clem Tufts, Charles Montgomery, Sadie Glutz, and one or more additional females. The information was based on a testimony of two untested informants, whom I did not name, but who were Ronnie Howard and Danny DiCarlo. When typed, the warrant ran to 16 pages. It was an impressive document. The evidence cited therein more than sufficient to obtain a search warrant. Only I was aware how weak our case actually was. With McGann and me tagging along, Fowles took the warrant to the office of Judge P. McMurray. The white-haired jurist was, I guessed, in his 70s. He told us he was near retirement. A search warrant, Judge McMurray looked at it with amusement. This was the first one he had seen in 18 years, he told us. In Inyo, he explained, men are men. If you knock on a door and the people inside don't want to let you in, you assume they're hiding something and bust the door in. A search warrant indeed, but he had read and signed it. In 1971, California Governor Ronald Reagan arranged to have Judge McMurray taken out of retirement to try the Angela Davis case. The defense challenged him for cause. The trip to Barker Ranch would take 3 hours, leaving us little more than an hour to search before the sun set. En route, Fowles told me some of the things he had learned about the Manson family. Exact dates, details, quotes from the investigating officers, etc. I would obtain the following day when we were going over reports of the various law enforcement agencies. When booked, almost all the family members used aliases. In a number of cases, their true names were not known until much later. To avoid confusing the reader as much as I was confused at the time, true names and most used aliases have been inserted in brackets. The first few members, in effect, a scouting party, had appeared in the area in the fall of 1968. Since you have to be somewhat different to want to live on the edge of Death Valley, residents of the area had developed a tolerance for people who elsewhere would have been considered odd types. The hippies were no stranger than others who passed through prospectors, just desert rats, chasers after legendary lost mines. There were only a few minor brushes with authorities. The girls were advised to test from panhandling in Shushan, and one made the mistake of giving a marijuana cigarette to a 15-year-old girl who just happened to be the sheriff's niece until September 9th, 1969, when National Park Rangers discovered that someone had attempted to burn a Michigan loader, a piece of earth-moving equipment that was parked in the racetrack area of Death Valley National Monument. It appeared a senseless act of vandalism. Automobile tracks leading away from the area were determined to belong to a Toyota. Several persons recalled seeing the hippies driving a red Toyota and a dune buggy. On September 21st, Park Ranger Dick Powell spotted a 1969 red Toyota in the Hale and Hall area. The 4 females and 1 male who were riding in it were questioned but not detained. Powell later then ran. Oh, get out of here. He ran a license check, learning that the plates on the Toyota belonged to another vehicle. On September 24th, Powell returned to look for the group, but they had gone. On September 29th, Powell, accompanied by California Highway Patrolman James Purcell, decided to check out Barker Ranch. They found 2 young girls there, but no vehicles. As they had found standard in their contracts with this group, the girls gave vague, uncommunicative answers to their questions. As the officers were leaving the area, they encountered a truck driven by Paul Crockett, 46, a local miner. With him was Brooks Poston, 18, who had previously been a member of the hippie band but was now working for Crockett. On hearing that there were 2 girls at the ranch, Crockett and Poston appeared apprehensive and, when questioned, finally admitted that they feared for their lives. Powell and Purcell decided to accompany them back to the Barker. The 2 girls had vanished, but the officers presumed they were still nearby, probably watching them, then beginning questioning Crockett and Poston. The officers had come looking for arson suspects and a possible stolen vehicle. They found something totally unexpected from Purcell's report. The interview resulted in some of the most unbelievable and fantastic information we had ever heard. Tales of drug use, sex, orgies, the actual attempt to recreate the days of Rummel in the Desert Corps by tearing over the countryside by night in numerous dune buggies, the stringing of field phones around the area for rapid communication, the opinion of the leader that he is Jesus Christ and seemed to be trying to form a cult of some sort. Wow. Text will be 76. The surprises weren't over. Before leaving Barker, Powell and Purcell decided to check out some drawbacks of the ranch. To quote Powell, "In doing so, we stumbled into a group of 7 females, all nude or partially so, hiding behind various clumps of sagebrush. They saw 1 male, but he ran away when they approached. They questioned the girls, but received no useful information. In searching the area, the officers found the red Toyota and a dune buggy, carefully camouflaged with tarps. The officers had a problem because of the Panamint mountain range. They couldn't use their police radio. They decided to leave and return later with more men. Before departing, they removed several parts from the engine of the Toyota, rendering it inoperative. The dune buggy had no engine, so they weren't concerned with it. They would later learn that as soon as we left, the suspects pulled a complete Volkswagen engine from under a pile of brush, put it in the dune buggy, and drove off within 2 hours. Wow. A check on the 2 vehicles revealed wants on both. The Toyota had been rented from a Hertz agency, a town near Los Angeles, on a credit card stolen in a residential burglary. The dune buggy had been stolen off a used car lot only 3 days before Powell and Purcell saw it. On the night of October 9th, officers from the California Highway Patrol, the Inyo County Sheriff's Office, and National Park Rangers assembled near Barker for a massive raid on the ranch, to commence the following morning. At about 4 a.m., as several of the officers were proceeding down one of the draws some distance from the ranch, they spotted 2 males asleep on the ground. Between them was a sawed-off shotgun. The 2, Clem Tufts, Steve Grogan, and Randy Morgilia, his real name was Hugh Rocky Todd, and Clem Tufts was actually Steve Grogan, were placed under arrest. Though the officers were unaware of it, the pair had been stalking human game. Stephanie Scram and Kitty, 2 17-year-old girls who had fled the ranch the previous day. Another male, Robert Ivan Lane, aka Soup Spoon, was apprehended on a hill overlooking the ranch. Lane had been acting as lookout but had fallen asleep. There was still another lookout post. This one a very well disguised dugout, its tin roof hidden by the brush and dirt on a hill south of the ranch. The officers had almost passed it when they saw a female emerge from the brush, squat and urinate, then disappear back into the bushes. Oh, it's disgusting. While 2 officers recovered the entrance with their rifles, one climbed above the dugout and dropped a large rock on the tin roof. The occupants rushed out. Apprehended were Leslie Van Houten, Marnie K. Reeves, and Patricia Krenwinkel. and Catherine Scher, aka Gypsy. Those inside the ranch house were caught unawares and offered no resistance. They were Donna K. Powell, which was Susan Atkins, aka Sadie Mae, Elizabeth Elaine Williamson, which was Lynette Fromm, Squeaky, Linda Baldwin was Little Patty. Other members of the raiding party surrounded nearby Myers Ranch, where the group had also been staying, arresting Sandra Collins Pugh. This was her married name. Her maiden name was Sandra Good, aka Sandy, Rachel Susan Morse and Morsehouse, Mary Ann Schwarm, Diane Vaughn, and Claudette Perel and Nancy Pittman and Brenda McCann. A total of 10 females and 3 males were arrested during the first week of the Barker Ranch area. They ranged in age from 16 to 26, with the average 19 or 20. 2 babies were also found. I don't even know how the hell you say that name. Zizozos Zadfrak Glutz, age 1 year, whose mother was Susan Atkins, and Sunstone Hawk, age 1 month, whose mother was Sandra Good. Both were badly sunburned. Oh my God, so sad. Mrs. Powell, wife of Ranger Dick Powell, who had been brought along as matron, took care of them. A search of the area revealed a number of hidden vehicles, mostly dune buggies, mostly stolen. A mail egg with a .22 Ruger single-shot pistol inside, also stolen. A number of knives and caches of food, gasoline, and other supplies. Also found were more sleeping bags than people, indicating that there might be others still in the area. The officers decided to take the prisoners into Independence and book them, then make a surprise raid at a later date in case others returned. The strategy paid off. The second raid occurred on October 12th, 2 days after the first. CHP, Officer Purcell, and 2 park rangers arrived in the area before their support were hiding in the bush, waiting for the others when they saw 4 males walk from one of the washes to the ranch house and enter. Purcell spotted Sheriff W. Don Ward of the backup unit approaching in the distance. It was already after 6 p.m., the dusk rapidly becoming dark. Not wanting to risk a gunfight at night, Purcell decided to act. While Powell covered the front of the building, Purcell drew his gun and, to quote from his report, "I quickly moved to the back door, flung it open, and making as much use of the wall on the left of the doorway as possible, I ordered all occupants to remain still and place their hands on their heads." The group, most of whom had been sitting around the kitchen table, were ordered outside, lined up, and searched. There were 3 females, Diane Lake, aka Snake, Beth Tracy, Collie Sinclair, and Sherry Andrews, plus 4 males. Bruce McMillan, John Philip Hott, aka Zero, who was in less than a month, would be shot to death while allegedly playing Russian roulette. Scott Bell Davis, Zero's partner from Ohio, and 1 Lawrence Bailey, aka Larry Jones. There was no sign of the group's leader, Charles Manson. Purcell decided to recheck the house. It was completely dark now. However, a homemade candle was burning in a glass mug on the table, and taking that, he began searching the rooms. On entering the bathroom, I was forced to move the candle around quite a bit, as it made a very poor light. I lowered the candle toward the hand basin and small cupboard below, and saw long hair hanging out of the top of the cupboard, which was partially open. It seemed impossible that a person could get into such a small space, but without Purcell's having to say anything, a figure began to emerge from the tiny cupboard. After I recovered from the initial shock, I advised the subject to continue out and not make any false move. As he emerged, he made a comment, more or less in a humorous vein, about being glad to get out of that cramped space. The subject was dressed entirely in buckskins, much differently than the others we had found. I asked the subject who he was. He immediately replied, Charlie Manson. He was taken to the back door and turned over to the officers outside. On re-entering the house, Purcell found still another male, who was just emerging from the bedroom. He was David Lee Hammock, a.k.a. Bill Vance, an ex-con with more aliases than Manson. Purcell noted the time, 6:40 p.m. None of the suspects were armed, although several sheath knives were found on the kitchen table. The prisoners were handcuffed and, hands on heads, walked single file towards Sourdough Springs, where the officers had left 2 pickups. En route, they encountered 2 more females driving a car loaded with groceries. Also placed under arrest were Patty Sue Jordan, Catherine Giles is her name, Sue Bartle, which was Country Sue. All the suspects were loaded in the back of 1 pickup, the second following immediately behind to provide illumination. As they neared the Lotus Mine area, about 3 miles from Barker, Manson told the officers that he had left his pack there, near the side of the road, Purcell. He asked us to stop and pick it up, which we agreed to do. However, we could not locate it by his directions, and we refused to let him loose to search himself as he requested. On the way to Independence, Manson told Purcell and Ward that the blacks were going to take over the country, and that he and his group only wanted to find a quiet, peaceful place away from the conflict. But the establishment, as represented by the police, wouldn't let them alone. He also told them that they, being both cops and white, were in deep trouble and should escape to the desert or somewhere while they still had the chance. Also during the ride, according to Purcell, 2 things happened which indicated to me the leadership exerted over the group by Subject Manson. At least twice Charlie made statements that would cause the others to say amen 2 or 3 times in unison. Also, a few times the others would become involved in whispered, giggly conversations. Charlie would simply look at them and immediately they would fall silent. The amazing part of the stare, Purcell noted, was how obvious the results were without a word being spoken. On arriving in Independence, the suspects were charged with grand theft auto, arson, and various other offenses. The leader of the family was fingerprinted, photographed, and booked as Manson Charles M., a.k.a. Jesus Christ God. I just want to see how long this chapter is. Throat's getting sore. Oh, okay, it's kind of long. I'm going to have to stop, I think, soon. All right. I was going to read on a bit more. According to Frank Fowles, although all but 3 of the 11 vehicles were stolen, were insufficient evidence to link most of the group with the thefts, and after a few days, more than half of those arrested were released. Though most had left the area, 2 of the girls, Squeaky and Sandy, had rented a motel room and were staying in Independence, so they could run errands for Manson and the others still in custody. I asked Fowles if he knew why the group had come to the area in the first place. He told me that one of the girls, Kathy, was the granddaughter of the woman who owned Myers Ranch. The family had apparently camped there first, then moved to nearby Barker. After the raid, a sheriff's deputy interviewed Mrs. Arlene Barker, who was living at an Indian ranch in the Panamint Valley. She told him that about a year ago, Manson had visited her, asking permission to camp at Barker Ranch. Like George Spahn, Mrs. Barker presumed there were only a few people and that they intended to stay only a few days. On this visit, Manson gave her a gold record, which had been presented to the Beach Boys, commemorating $1 million in sales of their LP, The Beach Boys Today. Manson told her that he was the composer or arranger for the group. Manson had contacted her again 2 or 3 weeks before the October raid, wanting to buy Barker Ranch. She told him she wanted cash. Manson said he'd see her again when he had it. Apparently, Manson felt that if he actually owned the property, he would have fewer problems with local law enforcement agencies. I was unaware until much later that Manson supposedly had an alternate plan to get control of Myers Ranch, which called for murdering Kathy's grandmother. I had no evidence that Kathy Giles was party to the plot, and that the plan had been frustrated by something very simple and commonplace. Well en route to her home, the 3 killers he'd chosen had a flat tire. I asked Fowles about the evidence recovered in the raids and subsequent searches. Were any of the knives a buck brand? Yes, several. Any rope? No. What about the wire cutters? Yes, there had been a big red pair. They found them in the back of what they later learned was Manson's personal or command dune buggy. Aside from the Ruger 22 and Clem's shotgun, any other firearms? Not one, Fowles said. In none of the searches did the officers turn out the machine guns, shotguns, rifles, pistols, and large stores of ammunition Crockett, Posted, and others said the family had. Throughout the trials that followed, we remain very aware that those members of the family, still at large, probably had access to a sizable cache of arms and ammunition. Barker Ranch was located in Guller Wash, one of 7 dry washes in the Panamint Range, apparently 22 miles southeast of Ballarat. He had been all over the country, Fowles told me. Those dry washes comprised the roughest terrain he had ever seen. We'd have to walk much of it, he said. Otherwise, our heads would have bounced through the roof of the 4-wheel drive Jeep Fowles had chosen for the trip. Oh, come on, Frank, I said. It can't be that rough. It was. The washes were extremely narrow and rock-strewn. Going up them, we'd frequently gain 1 foot, then with an angry screech of rubber, slide back 2. You could smell the tires burning. Finally, Fowles and I got out of the vehicle and walked in front of it, revolving boulders as McGann drove forward. Foot after foot, it took us 2 hours to travel 5 miles. I asked Fowles to have photographs taken of the washes. I wanted to show the jury how isolated and remote an area the killers had chosen for their hidden place. Circumstantial evidence, a tiny speck, but of such specks, one after another, a strong case is made. No one would have chosen to live at either Barker or Myers Ranch, which were about a quarter of a mile apart, except for one thing. There was water. There was even a swimming pool at Barker, though, like the stone ranch house and outlying shacks, it was in disrepair. The house was small. Living room, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom. I also wanted photos of the cabinet under the sink where Manson hid. I measured 3 by 1.5 by 1.5 feet. I could see why Purcell was so surprised. When I saw the large school bus, I couldn't believe Manson had brought it up one of the shelves or one of the washes. He hadn't, Fells told me. He had driven it in over the road on the Las Vegas side. Even that had been an ordeal, and the condition of the bus showed it. It was a battered green and white. On the side was an American flag decal and the slogan, America, love it or leave it. While Shorty and the others searched the house, I went to work on the abandoned bus. The placement of the warrant took some thought. It had to be left in sight. However, if it was, anyone could come along and remove it. I didn't want a defense attorney contending we hadn't fulfilled the requirements of the search. I put it on one of the racks just under the roof of the bus. You could see it if you looked up. At least a foot of clothing was piled on the floor. I later learned that wherever the family stayed, they kept a community clothing pile. When an item was needed, they'd root through the pile until they found it. I got down on my hands and knees and began rooting too. I was looking for two things in particularly: clothing with bloodstains and boots. A bloody boot heel print had been found on the front porch of the Tate residence. There was a small mark, a little indentation in the heel that I was hoping we could match up. Although I found several boots, none had such a mark. When Joe Granado applied the benzidine test to clothing, the results were uniformly negative. I had all the clothing taken back to LA anyway, hoping SID might come up with something in this lab. There were 8 to 10 magazines in the bus, half of which were National Geographics. Looking through them, I noticed something curious. All dated from 1939 to 1945, and all had articles on Hitler. One also had photographs of Rommel and his Desert Corps. But that was all we found. Our search appeared to have yielded little, if anything, of evidentiary value. However, I was anxious to go through the items picked up in the raids. On the way back to Independence, we stopped on Lone Pine. While I was nursing a beer with officers, Sartucci remarked that he and Patchett had interviewed Manson in Independence some weeks earlier, questioning him about the Tate as well as LaBianca murders. The following day, when I called Lieutenant Helder, I mentioned this, thinking he probably had a report on the interview. Helder was amazed. He had no idea from LAPD ever talked to Manson. That was my first indication that the Tate LaBianca detectives hadn't been working hand in glove. Heller did have some news. It wasn't good. Sergeant Lee had run a ballistics comparison on the .22 caliber bullets we found at Spawn. All were negative to those recovered at 10050 Cielo Drive. I wasn't about to give up that easily. I still wanted a much more thorough search of Spawn Ranch. Okay, I'm going to stop there. My throat hurts really bad.
You did a good job.
Yeah, thanks. I wrote the names down so I don't forget again. So it's Bugliosi, Basile.
Bugliosi, like scare boo. Boo.
Boo. Right.
Yeah, it's not easy. There's a lot of complicated names, and then they all have nicknames, and then there's so many of them.
Yeah, it's hard. So yeah, just interrupt me anytime I get it wrong, please. A lot of them I were just like, yeah, okay. I think that's how you say it, but I probably said a lot of them wrong.
Welcome to the rabbit hole.
There, I got it written out in idiot terms. Bugliosi.
Yeah.
And the other one was Basile.
Beausoleil.
All right. Bo.
Like a bow tie. Beausoleil.
Come on, pen. There. Got it written down, an idiot for me.
No. You're not an idiot.
Thanks, Earthling. People still camp there, Michelle? Really? You said people still camp at Barker's Ranch if y'all do their scorpions and snakes. Nah, I'm good. I'll stay right over here in the Canada.
When I do talk about my mom's story,
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot about Barker Ranch in there.
Oh, really? Oh, I can't wait to
Yep.
get to say. I'm so surprised that there's not a lot of people in here wanting to hear what you have to say. I mean, I know we're just starting though, too. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you wish you had baked Lay's chips. Yeah, maybe more people will watch soon. Probably more just to hear you talk though. Which, I mean, that's what I'm here for. Plus, I want to read the book, but I'm more interested what your story is.
Yeah, the Parker Ranch has burned down. I was able to go there before it burnt down,
Yeah.
and I took a couple mementos that I'll share.
It was May 2009.
So
You
without trying to give too much away, because I know Brittany and Rom is really on those facts.
Yeah.
Trying not to give away who my mother is too soon, but
Yeah.
backing up in the story, they're talking about the murder of Shorty Shay.
Yeah.
And they were very right. They don't have calendars or clocks or watches. And
Yeah, that
so
was weird.
they got raided on the 16th. And when he was talking about them being sent out, prior to that, when they're
Yeah.
all leaving the ranch, he's actually talking about the Tate murders and didn't realize it. And so that's what the cops are figuring out. Shorty was actually murdered after, and they were able to pinpoint the date of his murder because of my mom's testimony. She was in the back, and she had actually heard the screams. And those screams were one of the things that had haunted her entire life. But they were able to pinpoint with the location of the moon.
Oh my God.
That's how they were able to determine his murder date.
Wow.
Let's see.
Earthling wants to know your connect. Oh, she wants to know if you're one of the sunburn babies. You can tell her.
No, I wasn't born until the mid-ish 80s. I was way after this.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, really. Michelle says she heard few Manson family moved to Tronacier.
I don't know that. I'm not in California.
Yeah.
That I will say. And then there was a question from Michelle about a parole.
Oh, was there? Okay, yeah.
Let me back up. Let me find it. Are you able to see? I did connect or post a video in Discord relating to that question. Is there a way you'd be able to play that? Let's see. I'm not seeing that comment again, Michelle. But you're asking if one of the girls is out on parole. No, oh, sorry. I was asking Nikki if she could play a video.
Yeah, I'll get a Discord on here, and then I'll play it.
So they were talking in chat about Leslie. So anytime, puppy, shh, you're okay. She's like, I want to play. I've been good.
I love your dogs. You're so cute.
Earlier this year, Leslie was I guess without a better word, approved or considered fit for parole, but it was already blocked by the governor. So Leslie Van Houten has has been approved for parole over 20 times. I don't know the exact number, but it's well over 20.
Jeez. She's never gotten really took it.
Yeah, well, if anybody does get out, it would be Leslie, because she was not at the Tate residence. She was at the La Bianca. So overall, out of all of them, she's killed the least amount of people.
Yeah.
And anytime a parole board approves, which they have for her many times, it then goes to the governor, who the governor can then block it. And that's what happened every single time. And earlier this year, the governor blocked Leslie Van Houten, who has been approved for parole now is Patricia Krenwinkel. And she was at both residences. She was the one that chased Abigail Folger out the back around the pool and killed her. And she was also at the LaBianca murders and was killing Rosemary LaBianca. So I highly doubt, because it is the same governor that denied Leslie, I highly doubt he's going to approve Patricia Krenwinkel.
Yeah.
But there is a video. So there is a channel called Deborah Tate, and that is the younger sister of Sharon Tate.
Oh, okay.
And
I see the video.
It's the second one on her list. It says Deborah Tate full interview, 5/31/22, Charles Manson cult leader, Patricia Krenwinkel's parole grant. And so she talks about petitions and trying to get the public's help.
Yeah.
There were many parole that, even when it was really weird writing a letter to Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was governor, but I would type it up for my mom to send it out.
I remember when he was governor, yeah. So is she still, well, she's still fighting it, I take it, Deborah.
Sorry, 1 second. There is a bee in my room.
Oh. All right, you get that bee. I have to go to the phone booth.
It's still here. Okay. I don't know how to get rid of bees, but I'm going to light incense. That's all I've got.
Did you get it?
No, it is up by my ceiling fan.
Oh my god. Did you see the part where Amber Heard was like, my dog stepped on a bee?
No.
Did you see her face? Oh my god. I don't know how many people had that video of her face because she winces. It does look hilarious. She's like, my dog stepped on a bee. Of course, I'm laughing at it. I couldn't help myself. I'm a jerk. Feel bad for the dog, but it was funny her saying it. It was just the way she reacted in her face.
If I suddenly go quiet or you hear a yell and I leave, I'm running away from the bee.
Ah, gotcha.
But hopefully.
I hope your dog doesn't step on the bee, my god, or get stung in the mouth. Oh, that's horrible because they swell up so bad, poor little doggies. Ooh. All right, do you want me to play that now?
Yeah.
All righty.
Huge.
Your dog stepped on a bee. I'm sorry. Is that what you thought about it too, Earthling? Wasn't it funny? Oh my god. My dog stepped on a bee in her face. I want to show it so bad. I don't mean to but it's kind of funny. I can hear banging in her seat. Woo! Did you get it?
No, but I have it locked in the windowsill.
Okay, good.
The window's open.
Okay, I'll play it. Oh.
God, no thanks. Willow. Nikki, where'd you go?
Sorry, I'm trying to share it. I'm having a hard time
What?
here. Well, I muted myself thinking it was going to be like poof, because usually when I share things, it takes 2 seconds, but I'm having a hard time sharing this. Hold on. Share screen. Oh, there it is. Jesus. All right, there. I'll mute myself.
Charles Manson family member responsible for killing 7 people could possibly be granted parole. Coming up next on Good Evening San Diego, the sister of slain actress Sharon Tate will join us to discuss her initiative to keep the Manson follower behind bars. A Charles Manson family member who was convicted in a 1969 killing spree that left 7 people dead has now been found suitable for parole. 74-year-old Patricia Krenwinkel has been up for parole 15 times and denied 14 times before this. The decision will now be reviewed by the Board of Parole Hearings Legal Division, which can take up to 120 days. So if that decision is approved, Governor Newsom will then have 30 days to review it and either reverse the decision or allow it to stand. Krenwinkel was convicted of 7 counts of first-degree murder. So this decision by the parole panel is sparking public outrage, as you can imagine. The sister of actress Sharon Tate, who was pregnant when she was murdered, has now created a petition in an attempt to keep all of the Manson family murderers in prison. Deborah joins us now to discuss. Deborah, I applaud your tenacity and I appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for talking with us.
Thank you.
Well, the fact that this person was convicted of these kinds of murders, yet a parole board thinks she should be free, is really hard for me to wrap my mind around. So I can only imagine how the news lands on you. What did you think when you heard?
I always expect it. Governor Brown implemented a policy and made it a law before he left office. It is the Elderly Inmate Act. Now, the Elderly Inmate Act states that whether or not a inmate is suitable for parole, they must be granted a parole date. So I expect to hear this news every single time, okay? But the fight has to happen in the governor's office. I've worked so far with my petition site, noparoleformansonfamily.com, with the last 4 governors, and it has been effective. Ms. Krenwinkel's attorney likes to say that she's unlawfully bound, but that's not true. There is a precedent for denying these individuals their freedom based solely on the heinousness of their crime. And to tell you the truth, Ms. Krenwinkel, although I always applaud what they have accomplished in prison, didn't really do much until the last 5 years. She had done minimal programming. So I'm just not convinced that a cold, hard, heinous criminal such as this is rehabilitated or even can be rehabilitated.
You know, I'm not so sure if it's even an issue of the rehabilitation. You're talking about some of the worst crimes California ever has on our history. So whether they're a danger to society or rehabilitated, wouldn't it be a slap in the face of these victims and their families if they're allowed to be free?
Absolutely, 100%. And not just the Manson family murderers, but lots of other heinous killers that are in our grasps. It's a slap in all the victims' families' faces. We are being victimized and traumatized over and over again as a result of the state of California and their policies and laws. And it's criminal. It truly is.
Yeah, your sister never got a chance to reach her elderly years. That was stolen from her.
She did not. She did not. She did not. And her child didn't get a chance to live, even though he was 8.5 months viable. That's a human life. It should be 8 counts of first-degree murder by today's standards. Just like by today's standards, they would be considered domestic terrorists. There's quite a few things in there that, or factors, I should say, not things, factors that say to me, Deborah, you have to question whether or not these people can come back into society.
Yeah, I think that it's not just this one Manson murderer, but you are also trying to keep all of them behind bars and keep our, streets safer and bring some justice to the victims. You were pretty young when your sister was murdered, but can you share with me at least a story or a memory that you have with her?
I have so many memories with my sister. We are Army brats. So when you're traveling the world and moving every 3 years, what you learn very quickly is that the only thing that's consistent is family. So my sister was one of the kindest, sweetest, most generous souls that I have ever met in my life to this date. And I'm getting up there in years. I'm staring 70 right down the barrel.
Wow. Well, you look amazing. What words could we send to the governor and the parole board when they're thinking about this? I mean, what's been taken from you over the past 5 decades that they really need to think about before they greenlight the freedom of a murder?
Everything. My entire family is dead due to the stress of all of this. I am the only one left alive at this point. It's so many things, right down to trying to hold my family together, my family trying to hold itself together at a pivotal point in my growth when I should have been going off to college. The whole world crumbled. So it's so many things. I can't tell you. I'm used to this. This has been my life. I just don't want it to be anybody else's life. And as long as we can keep one more person from having to join this horrible club, it's definitely worth it to me.
Before we let you go, what can we do to help you with the petition? I know it's at noparoleformansonfamily.com, but what can we do other than get the word out?
Get the word out and write letters to the governor. On that site, it's not only signing the petition, but there is a place where you can write comments. And that way we know that it's going to go straight to his desk and not get lost in the paper shuffle that happens in any capital.
Well, as a community speaks up, let's be loud and consistent so it can't get lost in that shuffle.
This is one of the most heinous female criminals in American history. She's nothing, or was, and in my opinion, still isn't anything nice.
Yeah.
So,
well, she clearly hasn't fulfilled the price to pay yet. So, Deborah, thank you so much for your time tonight. Of course, we're going to get this on our website and get everybody to know about your petition and come alongside you with your fight. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you very much.
All right. You got it.
Good night.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wrote it down too. So does she still need signatures? Because I think we should all sign.
Yes, I would. I'd get, no parole for mansonfamily.com. There is also a petition. It looks like at change.org.
All right.
I've got a dog barking. Hey, come here.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be signed. I don't believe she should be out either. She was convicted of, what was she said, 7 murders?
Yeah, she was, so the 5 at the Tate, the 2 at the La Biancas, but it really should have been 8, including that unborn baby.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not understanding that. So nobody was ever charged with the baby's murder, or were they?
I don't think so.
So yeah, that's not right. I'm assuming laws are changed now on that because, Chris Watts was charged for that. So it's got to be changed by now, I'm assuming.
When they were convicted, they were actually sentenced to death.
Yeah.
But when it was overturned, it got changed to life with parole. I don't get the with parole part.
No. What they did exactly, what the reporter was saying, it was the most heinous to ever happen in California.
Mm-hmm.
It was disgusting. Michelle's dog's barked because yours barked.
Yeah, listening to Deborah describe her sister as one of the kindest people she's ever met. That's exactly how I would describe Deborah. She's one of the
Yeah,
kindest people I've ever met.
I'm
She's
glad that you got to meet her. How's she doing? Is she like, well, Frank, she'd be living with this still every day, though, actually. That's kind of a silly question.
yeah, this doesn't leave. This doesn't.
No.
That was one hard kind of realization with all of this, you know, because I do like watching true crime. I do like
Yeah.
watching stories. But then I instantly think at the end, what are they doing now? How is that affecting them now? Like,
Yes.
it does not end when the show ends. It keeps going. And frankly, all these people deserve to be in jail as long as their victims are in the grave, in my
I
opinion.
agree. Yeah, you're right. The show man, but the lives don't. Their lives, who are on the show, they're talking about, they're doing the interviews. They still have to live with that, and that I would never wish upon for anybody at all.
Looking at where you are at in this book,
Yeah, I was just gonna look at mine and see how far am I actually in it. I'm almost halfway, almost.
it is possible, depending on how much you read next week, that I'll either say who my mom is next week or pretty close to after. You're right.
That'll be cool. Then that would be. There's a few other people that I'd like to get up here. They've got some. Well, one was a ghost story. The other one, I need to get a hold of Selfie Queen Cindy and ask her if I may speak to this woman, because she had said on her Selfie Queen stream one time that her she was involved with a serial killer, and she survived. And I was like, what? I don't know who the serial killer was. I do remember the girl's name. I just don't want to out it. But
Yeah,
I want to
no.
get in touch with her as well, so that when we're all done this, I may do that project next. I know I love this stuff. It's just, I don't know.
It's a weird group to be a part of.
Yeah.
Like, I can actually say my mother was a Manson girl.
Yeah. Exactly. Can you imagine? Yeah. Hey, so I'm so and so's daughter, and yeah, she was a Manson girl. She was part of the Manson family. Yes, and I want you to come up and tell your story one day. Please, 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 please.
But it's an
Usually,
even
if I say
smaller
it,
group to be able to say my mom was still a good person. That's an even
Yep.
smaller group than I'm glad I'm in.
yes, I was glad too. And luckily, you weren't born in that time. You were 80s baby, like me.
Yep.
The one who went in Dr. Phil, no, right? Your mom didn't go in Phil.
No.
No, that was I'm assuming it would have been Linda. I don't know. I never watched the one. I usually do watch Dr. Phil. So, oh wait, well, who was? Yeah, the one.
I don't. Just like, eh.
There was somebody that was on there. I can't remember which one it was though. Yeah, I can't remember her name either. I don't know if it was Linda. I don't think it was. I'm thinking it was one that was still in prison.
I'm curious. I'm gonna Google this.
Yeah, I think it's the one that's still in prison, the one that's getting out on parole here. I don't know. I did watch the one where Dr. Phil had one of the victims of Ted Bundy's on there. Oh, so this one was never arrested on Dr. Phil. Oh. I wonder who that was then.
Oh, it was Diane Lake. Okay. She was one of, I think she was the youngest, actually. She was around 13, 14.
Oh my God, that's way too young to be there. Yeah, Ted Bundy scares me too. I actually, I read The Stranger Beside Me by Anne Rule. I read that on my channel, and yeah, it's a pretty fascinating story.
Yeah, and just think people are alive today that are learning, your aunt was killed by Ted Bundy, or your your
Yes.
cousin, your aunt, like this, it trickles, it never goes away.
No, it won't go away because you're going to be remembered as, your mom was part of the Manson family. And then if you have children, and then these children's children, and yeah, it goes on and on and on. On and on and on. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, the Night Stalker. I just don't understand how they can do these things. I think that's what the fascination is. Just how messed up they are, and trying to figure it out, you just can't. Because we have feelings, and we actually care. We have a heart, where these killers just don't. It's just so odd to me. It's so hard to figure them out, but I don't think anybody ever will, because I don't share their same thoughts and feelings at all.
That, and I think too that some of their, not all of them, but some of their backgrounds were pretty, for lack of a better word, normal.
Yes.
And so I think that scared people too. Like Patricia Krenwinkel, who is up for parole right now, she at one point was thinking about becoming a nun.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, what is it? Hotel. I was watching, Michelle, and it had the Night Stalker in it. Remember that one episode? It had all of them in there. And then also the one where they did 1984. And that he was in that one. Yeah. I love watching American Horror Story. They've got pretty much, usually every single one of their episodes, all their seasons are based on a lot of facts. That's another reason why I like watching it. Charlie had a traumatic childhood. Yeah, I heard he didn't grow up very nicely, and he was always in and out of jail and foster homes and whatnot.
Oh, it was horrible. He had a very horrible childhood.
Yeah, I don't know the gist of it. I just know that he was in and out of foster homes and jail, and I guess he loved it being in jail, apparently, or he did until the day he died.
But there are many, many people who also have traumatic childhoods that don't go and kill people. So,
right? I don't know. Maybe it's like a brain thing. I don't know, because exactly. There's a lot of people that have had a lot of horror happen to them. They don't turn out to be serial killers, and they don't hurt people. But then there's the ones that do, and I just can't understand or fathom how. Why are you doing this when this happened to you? Maybe they just get so screwed up from what happened to them, they just lose that. What is it called? I'm trying to think of like the feelings. Morals and ethics and compassion. Yeah. His mom tried to sell him for alcohol. Holy shit. Yeah, I understand that part with the people who have low self-esteem, and yeah, I can understand them going to Manson. I can understand that. Everybody wants to feel welcomed and feel loved. And if you're a runaway, you're runaway for a reason. So, I can understand that. I'm with you, Mayor. We've had long talks about that. And we are probably, the most nicest Canadian people ever. I swear. It's very odd to me. No, you're not. No, I agree with you too. It's like, it's not excusing them, but I can understand, but I can't.
Yeah, I don't pretend to be like any type of psychologist in any which way. This is just my opinion on what I'm going to say here. But, if you're wondering or you're trying to figure out if somebody really understands what they're doing, or they're able to tell right from wrong, I look and I see what their actions are. And if they do anything whatsoever to try and hide the fact that they've, done a crime, they know enough that it needs to be hidden.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If they're hiding what they're doing, then they know right from wrong.
That's how I judge it, and this is just my opinion.
No, you're right. I've heard that from actually Candace DeLong. She was an FBI profiler. read on her, watched a lot of stuff of hers, and yeah, like Deadly Woman. And she's right on target. Yeah, honestly, don't be afraid that you'll say
Yeah, don't
anything,
be.
Earthling. Oh God, no. Everyone's open here, always. She was 14 or 15 when she had Manson. Oh my God. Exactly. You don't even have to say your opinion. I would imagine it's your opinion anyways. But if that makes you feel more comfortable, then just say it's just my opinion. Yeah. No, I never have any crap happen on my channel. Ever. Like, there's no bullies or anything. Oh, just in general. I hear you.
Yeah, Deborah was young too when the murders happened. She was 13.
Wow. I couldn't imagine having a child at 14. Oh my God. Yeah, it is safe here. If anybody starts anything with any of my mods or my subs, they're gone. I don't put up with it.
Yeah, that whole nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's some sort of combo, but who knows?
I
You
think
get different
I'm also
people and
wondering too, like, if when something happens to somebody that's so tragic, it just, your brain can't comprehend it. So something like a chemical thing happens.
I don't know, like you'll have two different people with the almost
Yeah.
exact same circumstances, and you still can get different results. I think
Yeah.
no matter what, there is a choice.
You're right. There's always a choice. I don't know. It's yeah. Like Mara said, you can't explain evil. No, you can't. Like, they don't have empathy. A lot of them, most of them. I'm sorry, Earthling. I know a lot of us are. You know. It's gotta live one day at a time. Listen to me. I almost sound like an alcoholic group counselor or something. One day at a time. Yeah, coin toss. Yeah.
Hey, I think my bee is gone. I opened the screen a little. Oh my God.
I was also thinking, because I only go live twice a week, and I'm uploading KJ every day. My views are, they're down, way down. I'm only getting like 200 views, sometimes 400, sometimes 700. It's all over the place. Yeah, you can share something. So I was thinking about maybe even just adding another book and reading a chapter a day or something. And whoever wants to follow along can follow along. Just give me something to do, I guess. Because this is my income now. I have to make the most of it. And I think a lot of people are really sick of KJ. I know I am. Between that and I did lose a lot of viewers that weren't subscribed. They just don't watch anymore. It's okay. I've got trigger warning written on here. My little disclaimer.
I am not putting a bee in a jar. No.
You want to hear something so horrible? Okay. So my son's father, when we were together, he's like, I want to show you something. I'm like, okay. He goes, okay, catch a fly. You okay? Yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. So I walked away. He caught a fly, then he pulled a piece of my hair out of my head. But first he put the fly in the freezer, took out the frozen fly, tied my hair around him, and then when I came back to life from being frozen, he literally was holding my hair as a string to this fucking fly.
Like a leaf?
I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, this, how did you even think that up? That is so, what is he, your pet now? He goes, yeah, look, It's like a kite, only it's a bug. Oh my God. I'm like, wow. I can't believe I can't believe I slept with you. Moron. I did laugh, but I made him put the fly outside after he took my hair off him. Like, who does that? I'm glad I can help with that, honestly. Thank you for telling me that. I hope I do. You still got to post something? Yeah? Okay. I'll be watching. There, Brittany. I'm glad that she's been arrested, though. She is out on bail. All her electronics and all her devices have been taken away from her. I'm sure she can still go on somewhere, but I don't know. I honestly think that because of all her devices were seized, there's going to be stuff on there about KJ that KJ has done. I do. There's no way in hell KJ wasn't involved. I'm not saying with like death threats and all that other stuff, the CP and all that, but I just don't buy her being completely innocent in this at all. Yeah, I agree.
I wonder if we'll ever really know like the truth, like the story. It's like just bits and pieces for forever.
I don't think we will ever know. Like, honestly, I really don't. I don't. Like, there's still more things I'm finding out that has happened. It's just mind-boggling, all this stuff. Like, I read today on Twitter, apparently she was giving her passwords out to a lot of people. I was like, what? I didn't know that.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. Because EKC had said, well, who hasn't she given her password to? I was like, oh, well, that's a new one.
What, Willow?
That's amazing. I'm proud of you, Earthling.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. You're like excited. Yeah, right, Mare? That's an amazing accomplishment. I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start working on how I'm gonna tell my mom's story here, get some prep work done.
Yeah. No pressure. If you're not, like, even when your mom's name comes up, I can skip it and continue on with the book if you're not ready. Absolutely.
Oh no, go for it.
No, you got to be ready too. This is your story, your mom's story, you know? All right. Do you guys have any more questions? I'm just gonna, if not, then I'm just gonna go. I don't like to keep my video, well, especially my lives, over 2 hours because like that is such a long time, and my throat hurts. It's getting better though.
Why?
It does get better. Yeah, it's getting better. It's not as harmful. Like the next day, it's only a little bit. Whereas the first and second time, oh my God, I thought I was gonna die. But it is getting better.
Yeah, that first night hearing you like a couple hours later, like on Discord, you're talking like this.
Oh my God, it hurt. It did. I was like, I gotta go. I can't talk anymore. I'm sorry. Yeah, it hurt. So I'm alone tonight. Yeah, Mare sent me a bunch of stuff that I need to show as well. So I'll keep showing them, show videos and stuff throughout this, like the lives I do on Wednesday. Whenever story time comes, I'm ready. Awesome. Every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Sorry, Thursday at 7 o'clock. And every Wednesday at 8 o'clock is, I don't even know anymore. I'd more prefer people come up and share their thoughts, their stories, and I'd rather have that. But I'll still do KJ for my subs, the ones who came here for it. Then after, just talk about whatever.
Yep. So if anybody gets a chance, head over to Deborah Tate's petition.
Yeah. Yes. So Wednesday is alien time? Yes. Wednesday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. If you feel comfortable coming on my panel. You don't have to show your face or anything. Like, you can see me and Artsy don't. Yeah, the Urban Dictionary. Well, Urban Dictionary is supposed to be every Saturday. I swear it's jinxed though, because every single time Dom and I try and do it, something happens. Yeah, we'll book you in for sure. That's my favorite thing to do, is I love hearing different people, like stories from different people. Like, you got an alien one, and like the next person will come up and talk about ghosts, or the next person, like Artsy, will come up and talk about Charles Manson. I'm interested in all things. Oh,
But I don't know if you can hear it. I've got a neighbor doing construction.
Oh, dear. No, I don't think so. Ooh, interesting. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a good night. Thank you for coming up, Artsy. I love having you on here.
No problem.
You help me out so much, especially with words. They're hard to pronounce. I'm glad you know.
I only know that's my mother. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you to your mother then. Yeah, there will be
no parole for MansonFamily.com.
Yes. Yeah, I wrote it down. That's exactly what it is. No parole for MansonFamily.com. And then there's also one at change.org. So I don't know. I'm sure if you just type in Charles Manson, something will pop up. So whatever you find, just sign away. Oh my God, Brittany. Oh.
Is Urban Dictionary supposed to be happening this Saturday? Because I was going to add in a few Canadian ones just for you, Nikki.
I remember you were saying that. No, they're worse than the US. I couldn't believe it. Ooh.
Well, I'm going to make up my own terms, but I might.
No, that's what it's for, right? I would do it.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, good. It'll be amazing. I hope you can come back. So every Wednesday and Thursday I'm live. Yeah. And then you can tell your story on Wednesday. That'd be great. All right. You guys take care. Have a good night. And I will be back on Wednesday. And look up British ones. Okay. All right. You guys have a great night. Thank you, Artsy.
Have a good one.
Bye.